And good morning, and welcome to Touch Base Daily. My name is Ron Foster, and I am touching base with you as I do every day, except for Sunday because a brother needs to rest. Anyway, guys, I'm so excited because we have a special guest today. It is our Wisdom Wednesday, and you know how we roll on Wisdom Wednesdays. Man, we have an amazing guest, and let me just share. Let me put the banner up so you can see what we're doing on this Wisdom Wednesday with special guest Gerard H. Gaskin. Now, he was on our Instagram live one time, and we had an amazing time. The audience loved him, everyone loved him. And so we are going to have him back. And because YouTube is a much better platform, and we are also, since we are now on YouTube, we're going to have him here. And let me just, I'm not going to go into any politics. I'm not even doing anything. We're just going to dive right in. So let me show you some of the work, and then I'm going to bring him up to the stage. Okay, let's show some of his work. He is famous for his book called, let me just get that in there, Fine Art Photography, author of Legendary Inside the House Ballroom Scene. And check out these photos. Check out his work. I mean, I love his page. I love his book. I love his work. And I mean, just look at all of this amazing footage of the ballroom scene. It takes amazing. I was always, when I met him, when he was with us last time, he talked about how he was able to capture these wonderful photos and also the years of building a relationship with this community. Yes, it's a community, and so many people that make up this community, and there's so many intricate parts about it. So we're going to talk about his book Legendary. We're going to talk about his new book coming out. He's going to talk about that too. And but with no further ado, I am going to stop sharing this little baby here, and we're going to bring Mr. Gaskin on right now. There he is. What's going on, Mr. Gaskin?
Hello, 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 hello. Good, 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 good. I went to sleep well last night, and the little one went to school fine, so I'm good. As long as the little one goes to school fine, not too much drama in the morning over breakfast, we're good.
Awesome, awesome. For those that know, he is a husband, a father, and an amazing photographer.
Thank
So,
you.
so now I see you have here fine art photographer, author, legendary inside the house ballroom scene. First, how did you start your career? How did that happen when you were able to? I mean, you are specifically saying fine art photography. What's the difference between fine art photography and regular photography or other types?
Well, you know, I feel like there are moments when I put on two hats, right? I'm a fine art photographer and I'm a commercial photographer, and I see them as two different entities. Uh, when I talk about fine art photography, I'm talking about wanting to do books, wanting to show my work in galleries, wanting to show my work in museums, wanting for people to collect my work, to put on their walls. Um, that's the fine art part,
Mm,
right? Commercial photography is about me getting gigs, me sending uh, proposals to magazines and ad agencies and stuff like that, right? And then at the time, and then trying to then resell some of the work that I already have through through stock agencies and stuff like that, right? So there's two different hats, and they're at times interchangeable. Sometimes I take it off real quick and shove on the other hat real fast, because you just have to, because ultimately this is what I do 24/7. So
hmm
so when I'm talking about legendary, I'm a fine art photographer. I'm a what would you consider a documentary fine art photographer, right? Um, but when I'm a commercial photographer, I can be doing documentary stuff. I can be doing portrait stuff. I can be doing, still life stuff. I can be doing travel stuff. Um, there's there's lots of the
Moving pieces,
demand,
right?
right? Yeah, the demand, and it depends on who is hiring me and what they want from me, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So I think those are the things.
you've been doing this a while. How long you been doing photography?
Ooh, I would say about 30 years. 30
30
years.
years.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh
Oof,
man.
gosh. I'm trying to age myself there.
When you
Uh,
think about the years, right? You go,
yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. 30 years. I I graduated from college in 1993, and so that was and then I then had to figure out how to work. I first went back to where I'm originally from in Trinidad and Tobago, and I worked at one of the newspapers there. While I was in school, I was assisting here in the United States,
hmm,
working with older photographers, a lot of amazing, great older photographers, from Eli Reed to Bruce Tolliman to Jules Allen, to name a few, Jen Fong. I'm trying to think of
hmm,
all the photographers that I worked with. Mazer, Ray Mazer. I mean, a lot of Halbert, a lot of people who did, and I'm talking about people who did a lot of different things. Some people were like fashion photography. People did interior design, like Jen Fong only did interiors,
wow.
like architectural photography.
Yes,
And I think, you know, when you're getting into the photography world, you gotta really know all the pieces. I mean,
yes.
I understand you need to focus and you need to kind of figure out something and get really good at something. But when you touch on all of these things, it helps you then create your own vision and your own
Mhm,
ideas when you have multiple things to pull from. So I think that's the thing. And like I said, then I went home and I worked at a newspaper for about 8 months. Uh,
mhm,
then then after that, then left and then came back to the U.S. and then kind of started doing my thing, say around 1994, 1995. And I remember, David Bonds, who worked for a small black magazine called Emerge that was connected to the BET umbrella because it was
wow.
part of BET.
Mhm,
Gave me my first real kind of assignment, actually to photograph the Black Rock Coalition, shooting
wow.
a long time with Vern Reed and those guys. So you just, you know, um, not to be aging myself or anything like that, but
Look, when you've been
uh,
doing what you've been doing for 30
yeah,
years, look, and again, 30 years is you could have started when you were 10 years old, so 30 years doesn't mean you're old.
yeah, that's true. I was.
30 years doesn't
um,
mean you're old. You could have started when
yeah,
you were 10, so
that's
that's
true.
okay. But, you have all of this amazing background, so it wasn't that you just picked up a camera and just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna go out and just do this thing," but you have an extensive background in the actual photography as a career photographer, working for magazines, working for publications, working for. So, how did you make that transition from being a corporate photographer, I want to call it that, working as a profession and then making the switch or doing it at the same time into ballroom. Where did ballroom I mean, no one just wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be a photographer in the ballroom,
See, yeah,
sector of the
yeah.
world.
Gosh, that's a oof. All right, let me see how I'm going to start that answering that question. I think there's a couple of things, right? Like I said, I told you I'm from Trinidad, but one of the other thing is that I have a cousin. His name is Dane Gerard Gaskin. He's actually passed away now. He passed away, I think, in 2019. But
Mhm.
right around the time Paris is Burning, a documentary called Paris is Burning came out. My cousin Dane, who lived in Toronto at the time, came out to the family in Toronto, and I, and um, simultaneously, his father threw him out of the house.
Mm.
My uncle threw him out of the house. So I was trying to figure out um, what it, you know, all the questions around queer identity. At the same time, here in New York, ACT UP was doing a lot of stuff around HIV and AIDS. AIDS was a big thing. So there was lots of stuff happening in New York. And then also I used to hang out in the 42nd Street area as a young uh, person. I would leave Queens where I grew up, and I would go into the city and I would hang out in the 42nd Street. And like I said, it was right in front of me, right? And then I was like, oh man, I would love to figure out how to do a project that I could think about what it is to be queer, how you decide to be queer or not decide to be queer. Is it you're
Mhm.
born queer? All of those questions needed to be answered to me because, like I said, my cousin, who's actually born on the same day, we're born on actual the same day. His middle name is my
Wow.
first. His middle name is my first name. Uh, so we have lots of connections, So, um, and I was looking also to figure out what I was going to do my senior thesis in college. And so
Ah.
this is also my senior thesis in college, right? Senior project. Um, so all of those things kind of work together to turn into what you're looking at now, right? Well, I would say 30 years later, because like my photography career, my ballroom career is pretty much aligned in the same amount of time. I would
Wow.
say I would be doing ballroom a little bit more than say like the commercial part of my um, photography career.
Wow. It's just, every time I look at, I did not experience, or have, I should say, have the knowledge of the ballroom, the house ballroom, until the TV series on, I think it was FX, Pose.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh,
I knew of it because I go to the village, I hang out in the gay circle and the things that are happening. But I still did. Even though I was like hanging out in the village, hanging out with some friends and going to places, I would never really run into people that were in the ballroom
yeah.
circle. But I was always fascinated when I would see them doing their pops and all the different moves on the West Side. For those that don't know, the West Side before it became glamorous and beautiful is where everyone hung out in the village, and
Right.
they would do these dances and they would do competitions and they would be on the pier, and it was a mess. It was like, it was rat infested, but they didn't care. It was dirty, it
No,
was
dude.
grungy,
Yeah.
but they would go out and they would be out there dancing and competing against each other. And then obviously it evolved and it went indoors. It became like, look at this. This is a presentation. This is People get dressed up, people they go out and spend lots of money. They belong with these, what they call the families and there. And there's a whole culture that has evolved. How did you build trust to be
Ooh.
able to photograph these guys and girls?
It comes from having certain people who allow, who kind of gave me uh, developing relationships with them first, and then them saying, "All right, we're gonna bring you in," and not only that, but they have to be significant people, right?
Mm.
And some of those people are in the photographs, like so Hector Extravaganza is one, R. Chanel, this person Danielle Revlon, um, world and but the first real person is a guy named Douglas Says, who is a designer. makeup artist, also does drag also at times.
Mm.
So I knew a gentleman named Choir Fire, and Choir Fire used to be Whitney Houston's main makeup artist,
Okay.
and but he also worked with one of the photographers that I assisted. And so I basically called Quiet Fire, and literally I had a three-way conversation between Quiet Fire, Douglas, and me. And I was trying to figure out how to do these pictures. And what I first did, and they're not on this, but you can. I'm trying to figure out where you can find them. You really can't find them. They're kind of hard to find. There's some I put them Google just did a whole thing on ballroom. It's called arts and culture dot
Mm.
Google that you can find if you go in the search engine and find. And some of those pictures are there. And so I first did a whole series of pictures called Douglas's Girls. And they were basically all the most important femme queens. And a funny thing about this picture here is if you see the person sitting down with her arm like this, she's like, if you look at the picture, left hand side, and she has a hand like this, and
Right here.
on she's on her she's leaning on the table,
Yeah, I see it. We got it right here. I got my little
right?
cursor there. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's Dominique Jackson. That's the
Leaning on the
star
table.
pose,
Yeah, I see it. We got it right here.
right? That's
Nice.
Dominique Jackson, right? So,
Wow.
but to say photographed all of the top femme queens, Danielle and Octavia, and I can name, Tanae and Anjanae and Jennifer Legend, all the top femme queens. And they are the ones who then got me into ballroom. They're the ones who then made it carte blanche. And then of course, after that, then I met RR and Hector. And they used
Wow.
to put on a specific ball called the Shade Fest. And
Eh,
um, then then it became, you have to have somebody to bring you in.
yes,
It's
right.
not that
You just
simple.
can't show up.
Yeah, you show up.
You just can't walk in a room and just start taking pictures. Not this is a very I always
Yeah,
say exclusive circle. People that have been a part of this the circle, they know you, they connect with you. There's such camaraderie, and they also the community protects themselves. They because there's so many people that have persecuted them, given them a hard time. So they're very, very, what do you want to call it? Very secure, thinking about securing
well, I
the
mean, they
welfare of
insulate
everybody.
they insulate the community, right?
Right?
I
They
mean, you
insulate.
have to think, right? I mean, you think about hate crimes,
Yes.
a black trans man or woman are much more likely to be attacked, killed.
Yes.
So, you know, it takes, I mean, and if you think of someone's transition, if someone is transitioning from male to female, they don't automatically look like a woman tomorrow.
That's right.
It's a process, right?
That's why they call it
It's
transition, right?
right, exactly, right? And if you think that early on process is when they're the most danger, right? That
Yeah.
beginning, that first 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So they have to uh, uh, insulate themselves, right?
Yes.
Because the outside world, um, um, I don't know how they see them, but in the sense of that, it becomes a very, very dangerous space. I mean, there's a young kid last summer was murdered
Yes. Out in
in a
Queens,
gas
right?
station. No, in Brooklyn,
Oh,
at
it's
a
in
gas
Brooklyn.
station. It was in Brooklyn, a
Yes,
gas
right.
station in Brooklyn, right? For voguing, you know.
Yes.
So it's it's that place where people then ultimately find um, they find people who are like-minded. They find people who share their common love, and that's why they insulate themselves. And I'm lucky enough after 30 years, I know most of the, I would say, I call them the gatekeepers, and they have allowed me, and I'm honored to just be part of the scene now,
Wow.
right? Um,
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna ask about, because something you just got back. You just
yes.
returned. You just made the big
Mhm.
return. Gaskin returns.
Yes,
You were
Gaskin
you
return.
were overseas. You were living in London,
Hmm.
traveling. You went to Istanbul.
Yeah.
You went to Paris. What? Welcome back home. Welcome
Thank
back to
you. Thank you.
Brooklyn.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we left, family left August 11th, and then we got back January 2nd. Um,
Right.
I got back January 2nd, and me and the little one got back on January 2nd, and the wife got back on January 3rd because she then went back home where she's originally from in Sri Lanka to visit her mom and her, friends and her family. So we couldn't do that. We stayed, and then I ulti- I ultimately then went to Birmingham. My family
Mm,
lives in Birmingham. My sister lives in Birmingham. My nephews live in Birmingham. So I went to Birmingham and spent Christmas and New Year's in Birmingham. And then
wow.
after that, and then the little one had to go back to school, so we had to get back. And she missed the first day because the first day was the second. But yeah, and then now we're figuring out how to get back into living back here in New Jersey. And but then also my wife is also a college professor. That's the reason why we went originally. She
Hmm.
teaches at a university called Colgate, and but Colgate is in upstate New York, and so she goes up, about 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 days a week, and then comes back down, and then we then go up on weekends to not allow
Wow.
her to have to keep doing that travel because it's about a 4-hour drive from here. Uh,
Wow.
so it's also one of the reasons why we went to London is because then all of us could be in one space together. The family could be together. We can get up in the morning together. We're also, I think it's funny, right before doing this thing, I was on the phone with her, and the next trip is to go to South Africa in about 2 years, I think.
Ah, you're gonna
So
love South Africa.
yeah, you well, we did South Africa right before the pandemic,
Okay.
and in 2019, we spent about a month and a half in Johannesburg. We went to Cape
Yeah.
Town. We went to Pretoria, but we only did like a week in Pretoria and a week in Cape Town. Cape
Ah.
Town is amazing. This time we're going to be stationed in Cape Town specifically,
Oh,
not Joburg. But yeah, so we're gonna do that, and because we also believe that we want the little one to also have this globalness about her.
yes,
She's
yes, yes.
already from her parents are from two different places in the world. So we want her, especially because she's going to be an only child, we want her to have this global thing. It's funny. Last week she had to go to school, like somewhere where she's from, and of course, we kind of had this kind of splitness about her being part Caribbean and part Sri Lankan. So yeah, yeah, we were in London, and then we then went around after being in London. We then we went around England specifically. We went
Yes.
to Liverpool and Manchester and Bath. I don't
Bath.
know which one.
Well, I call it Bath,
Bath,
but
Bath.
I'm sure they
Yeah,
say it differently in England because
yeah. They
I'm
call it
always
Bath in England. Uh,
Bath, Bath.
yeah. We went to Sunderland. I don't know if you guys know anything about Peppa Pig. but there's a specific amusement park in Sunderland, all around. Peppa Pig is one of the cartoons that my little girl loves. Uh, and we went to a lot of the sea towns in England. There's a place
Mm,
called Hastings and Margate, and they're only about maybe an hour and a half from London. The cool thing, the train system
trains are
in
awesome.
like amazing, and then like I said, then I took the train to Paris uh, twice to go photograph balls in Paris,
Yeah.
because in some ways the Paris ballroom scene is big. It's significant. People from all over Europe come to Paris to
Wow.
to perform at balls that happen in Paris or in Europe. The Italians come, the Lithuanians come, the Russians
Wow.
come, the Germans come, the Netherlands. The last ball I photographed, they had a huge crew doing a documentary for Dutch television at the last ball that I photographed, following I think three or four Dutch
Mhm.
performers down from Holland or Amsterdam to Paris. So yeah, I mean it's a interesting thing to be out of the American bubble, I call it,
Yeah.
or
I
space.
love it.
Yeah,
I love when I'm
because
overseas.
the TV is different, the news is different,
Yes.
the food is different. Um, so I think it's always good to be out of it for a while. I mean,
Yes.
and it was very good for us to,
Mhm.
and because we're me and my wife were from what we could call former British colonies, also. And so Britain is a very, very big thing in our upbringing, because our school,
Yes.
the early part of our school system is based on the British system. So yeah, it was a good time. And I think Istanbul is probably one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to, and it's
Wow.
modern and amazing. I would recommend everybody to go. And the number one place in Europe to get hair implants.
Oh,
So
really?
literally 10 or 15 men that was leaving when we were flying back to London
And got their hair
had
done.
had their hair done, and they're like bleeding, and they had these little
Oh,
patches. And
man.
it was the scariest, funniest thing you would ever imagine.
You should
But
have
you
you
wouldn't
should have took
you
photos of
wouldn't
them.
know, right? You wouldn't know if you didn't go, right? If you didn't go to Istanbul, you would know that that's the place. Because like
Wow.
after the second day, seeing, we're walking the streets of Istanbul and keep seeing these guys with their hair shaven, and they have all these little dots in their head, and it's bleeding, and they have these
Wow.
bandanas around their head to keep the gauze on their head so it doesn't, go everywhere. The blood doesn't go everywhere, right? And that they can sleep, kind of okay. Uh,
Do you
but
think so? I mean, here's a question for me. I mean, I have to go there. Do you think some of our celebrities go there to get their
yes,
hairs done?
yes. Well, I'm not saying all of this is under the wire, so I don't want
Yes.
anybody saying Gerard said so. But I've heard in the grapevine that in some ways that's where LeBron James went.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I would think a lot of if Istanbul is known for men getting hair transplants, hair transplant, that it would be a destination for people that are in
yeah,
acting and in
yes, I
Hollywood.
wouldn't
Because you
I
look at
wouldn't
some of the
doubt it.
heads, you're like, how does that guy have all his hair? Some
No way, no way, dude, no way. And it was a
Uh, he froze a little
Like
bit. Yeah, there
thinking
we
of
go.
the I'm sorry. I'm not worried about the flight, specifically the flight out.
Yeah.
We didn't see any of it on the flight out. It's when we got there and it was, we went to the spice
Wow.
market, or we went to, I don't know, the Blue Mosque, one of the great sites in Istanbul. And you're like,
What's going on?
see that? Honey, did you see that? And then you ask around, and I asked somebody, and
Yes.
I mean, him and his kind of broken accent. He was from somewhere else. I think he was from the Middle East. The guy that
Mm.
I asked, and he says, "Yeah, this is the place." And then I was
So
like, "Damn, maybe next time I need to figure out what the hell
I
to
think
do with this
we should
hairline.
we
Yeah,
need
what I
we
to
may,
do with this hairline?
there's hope for us, maybe.
Yes, Istanbul,
Maybe we can get this all filled in.
right?
So
Yeah,
I mean,
and then
so I'm gonna ask you one question before we go. 'Cause I want to definitely hit on the ballroom in Paris versus America. But I'll also say, I mean, you already gave lead to it, but how? I mean, there's a lot of folks in the building that have families and they want to be photographers. How do you juggle being husband, dad, and photographer?
Whew.
Just a quick thought.
It's a huge juggle. I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is that that's one of the reasons why my dad's so late, right? I don't know if it's hard at the beginning. I think you gotta be really, really grounded. You gotta have because having a child and being married, it's it never stays in one place, especially if you in yourself already is someone that's a transit person already, right? I get on a plane to go to work sometimes. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not here. It's already a transit lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're bringing, now my daughter is 5.5 years old. When you're bringing a young person in, I mean, I think one of the other great things. This is terrible to say, but in some ways, COVID really helped little one, just because then her parents were home together and
Yes,
we're
yes.
in the same house and we lived in the same place for about a year and a half, right? When I think like a lot of the world was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So, so in some ways, that was a good thing. I think even to the point it was a good thing that she was young, and she wasn't even the age right now, because
Yes.
then the teaching part of her her thing, having to like homeschool her and all that kind of stuff, would have been even more work. Um, I just think you just have to. It's funny. One of my wife's colleagues gave me a really interesting tidbit, really, really earned. And he said to me, he says, as long as you know that things are always going to change,
Mm.
that in 6 months, the little girl that you have is going to be completely somebody completely different. You yourself, you're going to
Yes.
be completely different. Your wife is going to be completely different. Your career is going to be completely different. Just don't worry about change. Just
Mm.
absorb change.
Mm.
And you're smart enough to then be adaptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just as simple as the how we're now on YouTube and not on Instagram, right?
Yes.
You have to kind of be able to pivot and move with the punches and how this world moves. And now the world moves even faster
Yeah.
now than it's ever moved before. So I think that's the thing. Uh,
Wow,
really.
that's good insight. I mean, I love that you said every 6 months there's change. And that's pretty true. I mean, it's really we're always changing, we're always growing, and you a lot of couples don't make it, a lot of families don't make it, a lot of people don't stay in business as long, whatever the case may be, but they don't realize that at the very foundation that we are always constantly changing. We're growing, we're maturing, we're learning, and it's not a negative thing. It's that we just have to learn to adjust with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm
Yeah.
going to take you back to ballroom
Yeah.
and American versus Paris. I
Ooh.
mean, what are the similarities and what are the differences?
Well, I think the first thing is ballroom started here, right? And
Okay.
so I think that's a very, very important thing that you need to kind of talk about off the top. So whatever they do in Paris, the foundation is right here. It's
Yeah.
Harlem, it's New York, right? It's Harlem and New York, right? That's the foundation, right? You know, the Christelle Beiges, the Paris Duprees, the Dorian Corys, you know, the Avis Pendavis, the Angie Extravaganzas, the
Yes.
you know, the Duchess Lawangs, they all is right here. That's the foundation of ballroom, right? Specifically modern day ballroom, right?
Yes.
Um, the whole house scene, you know, what we call house. They're having houses and all that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
that's the first thing. Um, I think what what makes Paris so different
Mhm.
is, like I said, people are here in the United States, people travel 2 hours, three
Mhm.
hours, get on a plane, go to Chicago to do a ball in Chicago. But in Paris, people are doing the same thing from Germany, from Russia, from
Mm.
Finland, from the Netherlands, from Spain, from Italy, from Switzerland. They're all coming in, and not only that, but they're coming in with completely different languages. They're coming in with completely
Wow.
different cultures, right?
Yes.
Um, the other thing is that I think is very, very interesting in Paris is the African, the Africanness is stronger.
Mm.
It's 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 modern. It's right then and there. Those the young kids who are in Paris, if they're not first generation, they're from Africa.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
so when you're listening to the music, like the music in ballroom here in the United States is all kind of disco stuff, right?
Okay.
1970s, 1980s disco. But in Paris, they spin the African beat in
Oh, they got the
into that
Afro beats in
old,
there.
yes, into that kind of disco sound into the from
Yes.
the US. So they grounded in this US thing, but then they throw in the flavor of the Africa on it. And it's
Wow.
just like you stand in the space because one of the main
Wow.
and the other amazing thing is difference is in the United States, houses chant against each other.
Yes.
1 minute is the house of La Beja is in this corner and they're chanting La Beja, La Beja, La Beja. And then in this
Okay.
corner they're yelling Ebony, Ebony, Ebony. And they usually have a chant. You know, they have this is the house of blah blah blah, and they kind of do all these different things, right? In in Europe, there's a terminology that they also use here is called a 007.
Hmm.
And a 007 is a person that is not connected to a house specifically, right? So
Ah.
here in the US, there are not too many 007s. Usually if you show up at a ball and you're a 007, by the next ball, you're not a 007 anymore,
You
right?
belong to a
Because
house.
some house person is just snatch you up and say, no, 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 you come into our house, right?
Yes.
In Europe, people stay 007s for a lot longer
Mm.
than become part of a house. And it's interesting because I had lots of conversations with house people in Paris and then also in London. I think it's important for the people in the house scene in Europe to ultimately make their own houses and not
Mm.
be affiliations to the houses that are here in the US. I
Gotcha.
think because then what happens is then the person who wants to really be a mother, the person who really wants to be a father of a house can
Mm-hmm.
be that person, and it's not some kind of ordained thing that somebody in the United States say, look, I'm gonna make you the chapter leader of the house
Right.
of Gucci or the house of Mizrahi or the house of Revlon here in Paris or here in London or here in Amsterdam or wherever, right? I think that's the thing that is is very very different. So when they do the chants,
Yes.
everybody chants. Everybody will yell double o double o double o 007. Everybody will yell the house of Mugler. Not just the house will do it,
Yes.
right? So it's a that's the other difference I would say. But other than that, I mean, it's a and then I would also say there's more white people in the house and ballroom scene in Europe than it is here in the United States, where
Interesting.
queerness in the United States is very very segregated, right?
Yes.
Bl- If you go to a ball here in New York, there's just there's a there's almost like a trickle, or in the United States, there's a trickle of white people.
Right.
They don't overpower the scene. Where if you go to a ball in Paris, I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but it's more 60-40, 65-35
Mm.
ratio, black being 65-35 white. Where here
Okay.
in the United States, it's more like 5%
Gotcha.
white, right? Right.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you have obvious. I mean, because you have so many Europeans. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
The Paris scene is more of a is like a hub. It's
yeah,
like, I mean, it's a global hub. New York
yes,
would be like a United States hub. People from
right,
Atlanta, people from DC, Philadelphia, Boston will
yeah,
come to New York. But
yes,
in Paris, it's literally global. It's people
yeah,
coming from
yeah,
Africa, people come from Germany. They're all over Europe. So the
yeah,
dynamics is quite interesting. I'm going to lead
yeah,
you now into something that I know is very dear to your heart. I hear there's a book coming. This book,
yes,
iconic. What is going
yeah,
on? Let me just go. Let me go take it here. Your latest project is called Iconic.
right.
And
So,
what is what did this? How did this happen? What's going on there?
well, it's it's an interest. Gosh, I'm gonna go like this, right? So, Legendary. I was working on Legendary, and when I was working on Legendary, um, I got a call um, from the people at Vibe magazine, right? This is a long
Mm,
time ago. We're talking
mhm.
late 90s, early 2000s. So we're saying 25 years ago. And they were like, we want to do something, um, but we don't know how we're going to do it. Right. And I says, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the balls and I'm going to make these portraits. So I went to the balls back in the early 90s or late 90s, sorry, in early 2000s, and I was making these photographs, and I was like, I liked them. If like I said, if you go on the Google website, the Google cultural thing around ballroom,
Mhm.
you'll see a lot of those portraits because that's where I put them now.
Wow.
Because they never ended up in Vibe because then me and the Vibe people fell out. That's a long story. We don't really need to go
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
But when Legendary came out, I was like, all right, then what am I gonna do? Like, I can't keep making pictures like I did in Legendary because that's what they expect from me, right? I
Mhm.
said I gotta switch it up. I can't
Yes.
keep doing the same thing. Um, and and so then I was just sitting around and I'm trying to figure out. what's the next level up? And so in
Mhm.
ballroom, there's all these different uh, levels, right? First, you get into the ballroom scene, then you become a statement, and then you become a star, and then you become a legend, and then you become an icon.
Mm.
So, and then you become, and then you're a pioneer. If you think of the people who are still alive, who come from the late '60s and early '70s of ballroom, right? So my thing is, what's the next level from legendary? And it would be iconic. It would be an icon, but there used to be a house named the House of Icon, and I didn't want it to be named after a house, one house specifically. So now it's become iconic. So the idea is to make iconic images of people who are at the balls. And then I also wanted to make pictures that no one else could make at balls. Because
Mm.
then what happens is now there's younger people than I am showing up at balls, photographing the ballroom scene, and are doing an amazing pictures. You know. So I wanted to do something that would be hard for someone to do. So I literally bring a backdrop, I bring lights to a ball, and thank thank God that the people who put on the balls give me space somewhere in this hall to get power and to turn on my lights and to make these portraits.
Mm.
Um, and so now, like I said, it's the next notch up from legendary,
Mhm.
and that's what you have is iconic. And I've been working now for about 6 years, and I've made tons, been to I would say over 75 to 100 balls that I've just basically been doing this specific thing right here, uh, making
Wow.
these making these portraits. Um, and I carry two lights, a backdrop, and I have one light, almost like Rembrandt light in the front,
Mhm.
and then one light kissing the side on the other side, and it shifts, depends on the ball and how I'm set up in the ballroom
Mhm.
would determine which side the front light will be on and the back light will be on, right? The back light will be opposite from the back front light, and it
Yes.
would
Yes.
it'll be determined by how space in the ball is, because there's some balls where the door to get into place is over on this side, and I can't
Yes.
put my front light over here. I got to put it over here, away from people walking in and wanting to
Bumping
trample over
into
my
it or knocking
cords
it
and yeah.
down.
Oh my God. I mean, uh, you would not believe the juggling that I have to do with my light. I have to put a little spot on the floor, a little piece of tape on the floor every time, so because I have to move my light for people to walk
Exactly. Yep.
by. I
Yes.
mean, dude, you would not believe the amount of stuff I have to do. But like I said, now I just got these amazing guys out of London. Another great thing about me going to London is I met this company they call Ink Retouching, and they're in Hackney in London. And you can get them online, and you can
Mhm.
send them your stuff online. It's not, I
Oh,
mean,
I need to
because there's a
you need
lot.
to send them to you need to send the link to me right away.
Yeah, they're called Ink Retouch, right? Ink Retouch, and they're the ones who are going to be doing all the retouching and all the color correction, because that's the other problem, right? Because I go to lots of balls, uh, to reproduce the same gray background is very, very, very difficult, especially
Mm.
around space, right? There are moments when I'm in a small little box and lights are bouncing all over the place, and I gotta block off this light, and I mean, it could be a mess. So they're
Mm.
gonna do a retouch, um, my stuff for me. So that was one of the great things. And at this point, I have three people who are gonna write some stuff. There's a really amazing writer who actually writes for the New Yorker. His name is Hilton Als. I don't know if people know who he is, but he has an amazing book called, I think it's called White Women or White Girls, or I think it's White Girls. I think it's White Girls that's out. And then there's a gentleman who is at the Smithsonian. His name is Aaron Bryant, who is head of Black, who's head at the African American Museum in Smithsonian in
Mm.
Washington, D.C. Um, so he's gonna also write something. And my I call him my man, a guy named Frank Leon Roberts, who's also, it's funny, I met him. He was just a PhD student at NYU, and now he's assistant professor at Amherst College in Massachusetts. So,
Wow.
yeah, he's gonna write something. So, yeah, I mean, we're gonna photograph this. Like another thing I talked about is the fact that now I'm coming down to crunch time, and I'm trying to make sure that I photograph the right 50 people. Or I
Right.
mean, of course, there's going to be about 120, maybe 135 photographs, somewhere between
Mhm.
120 and 135 pictures in the book. Um, and you know, you have to kind of do this dualness about um people who are historical people, people who have
Mhm.
been in the scene, who are pioneers, the Junior LaBeijas, the Duchess Lawangs, the Erskines, the Pendavis. I mean, you know, those people have to be in the book, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
right? The R. Chanels, the um the Tracy Africas, I'm trying to think of the names of like real icons, right?
Mhm.
Uh the Sean Colemans, people like that. And then people who are part of ballroom, but also now are doing amazing things outside, and have been already doing. I mean, there's a
Yes.
gentleman named Yusef Williams, who is Rihanna's hairstylist,
Mhm.
um, who is a superstar, right? I mean, flies
Mm.
around the world with Rihanna, right? Doing hair for Rihanna. He's got his own hair products, but he's also the father of the house of Mugler, right? Um,
Yes.
so he's got to be in the book, right? He's an important
Mhm.
person, right? There's a guy named Mike Q, who's a DJ, and he was the DJ on Beyonce's tour, the
Mm.
last world tour, right? And he is ballroom, right? So
Mm.
there's lots of people like that, right? There's a person named Trace Lavalette, who has a movie out now, independent film called Monica, that's getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and she's
Mm.
ballroom, right? She's part of the house of Givenchy. Oh no, no, I'm sorry. She's part of the house of Gorgeous Gucci, right? And also was used to be a Miss Rahi, right? But then also Jack now Gorgeous Gucci, who's part of Pose and does lots of stuff all around the world. Goes from India to, gosh, to Japan,
Wow, so
announcing
global.
balls, right? Announcing balls, doing lots of stuff, right? I mean, was in London when I was in London doing the opening. Was basically the announcer to open Beyonce's uh, documentary movie that just came out, I think in the
Wow.
fall of this year, right? He did the opening party in London, right? So these people have to be in the book,
Yeah.
So I think so when I talk about the 50 people, like I have to make sure that I take a great picture of them. And then I also want to make sure that I also talk about the young current superstars who are now starting to make it, you know, who are doing Javier, who goes around the world, Arturo that goes around, Armani who goes around the world. They go around the world doing dance classes from Russia to South Korea to Brazil to Argentina, Indonesia,
Mm.
Japan. I mean, um, and that was the other great thing about going to Europe was then finding out all the major players in the ballroom scene in Europe. Rude Boy that I, Roy Rude Boy, who Mugler, who is one of the main ballroom people in Paris, right? And is the father of the house of Mugler in Paris and in Europe, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but the other interesting thing about him is he has that skin disease that Michael Jackson had, where
Yes.
it's kind of, I don't know what it's called, but also my sister, my blood sister, also is now starting to have it now on her forehead and parts of her
Wow.
body, right? But he has it on his face, right? And
Uh-huh.
so um it was cool to kind of even talk to him about that, right? And talk about his own kind of evolution about being queer, but also then with this skin thing. And because he's younger, I mean, my sister started getting that thing, I think maybe about 10, 15 years ago. Um, so, yeah, I mean, so I think that's all of yeah, this is what, this was at Rude Boy's ball. Uh, and, and Sid, who is the person I'm standing next to, is, was also, I mean, I don't know if you knew Max, it's called Max, or it used to be called HBO Max, but there's an online thing. They had a show, and that's Jack Mizrahi, that you just passed. But to say, um, so much stuff happening, and you have to, these people came from Indonesia, you know, to the ball. The last person that you just showed came from Russia, and it's against the law to be queer in Russia or be trans
Hmm.
in Russia, right? Uh so just to be out is is hard and difficult
Yeah.
and dangerous,
Very
because it's
dangerous.
against the law,
You will go to prison.
you would go to prison being trans, right? So I think um it was very, very thing. So now I've gotten connections, and now I've been able to photograph them. They come to the US, um and because then I also want to make this book a global space, right? And I think it's important for it to be um a global um, thing, that ballroom has become now, right? So
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're down to the last minutes of our time together. Let me just go through here and let's see what some of these comments are. And I did put some of these in here. Let me just move this out here. Let me just go. And I see Dr. Taki says Paris is Burning is also a great documentary in regards to. And
yes,
also, Pose came out after Paris is Burning. Those are some of
yes,
the quotes. I mean, Guy, you have a couple of questions. Let us know, and we'll do that real quick.
yeah,
And before we close out, because we are closer to the hour time. And I see this. Felicia says, Is there safe space for expression and competition?" I love
yeah,
that. Also, Felicia says the fashion and the fashion and competition of it fuels fashion and entertainment to this day.
Yeah, right. I
Wow.
mean, like I said, Rihanna makes music about the house and ballroom scenes. Beyonce's last record has ballroom all over it. Her last tour,
True.
she used 4 or 5 dances from the ballroom scene. Right now, Madonna's on a world tour. She literally has a ball in the middle of her set when she changes costumes. She
Yes.
literally has a ball going on, right? So to say that's just one of many things. Like it's like I said, they had another reality show that was on Max, HBO Max, called Legendary. It's funny. Somebody asked me on Friday
Someone
if
someone
they
took the
if they
title.
yeah, if they bit my title. And the funny thing about that is that I love the fact that they bit my title
Yes, there's a
because
connection, a bridge.
right, because my book now is now on its third run, right?
Wow.
Because of them biting my title, right? So I think it's always, people are always, they did it, man, you should be pissed. No, I'm not pissed, dude. Like
No,
it
no,
helps me, it
exactly.
helps it helps me grow the brand.
And for those that
So
don't know, let me also show the book so that way people know the book that's already out
yeah,
there for you so people can pick it up. It's an
yeah,
amazing coffee table book. And this is on his website. You can go to the website. You can
yeah.
click onto Gerard Gaskin's photography, and then right
Mhm,
here you can just buy the book at Duke University Press. So make
mhm.
sure you can do that. And this is the information, but such a great book. And we have a mutual friend. She kept telling me about you for years. She was like, "Ron, you gotta
Yes,
meet Gerard. You gotta
yeah,
meet Gerard. You
yes.
gotta meet Gerard." And we finally got together at the New York
Liberty
Liberty
game.
game, and we had
Yes,
such a
yes,
great time. And I got to meet your wife and your daughter, and we just hung out.
yes.
It was a great game, but most of all, I got to meet the great Gaskin.
No, no, no. I mean, and it's funny because I was talking to somebody about me doing this, and I was saying, how we met, at this Liberty game, and part about it's interesting how you combine work and life and everything. How you're never taking off your so-called hat, right?
Yes,
Because if you think our mutual friend, is the pastor with the Liberty,
yes,
and I met her through a client of mine. Her sister used to actually do almost like a kind of reality show at these events, and she used to
wow,
just tag along, right? But of course we became friends because she was there at these events that almost like 6 or 7 years we would do all these events.
yes.
And so it's an amazing thing, and she would always say, hey, you got to meet my friend Ron, he comes to my church, man, you got to come, blah blah blah. And so I think and then we met, and then of course
Yeah,
then
here we
you met
are.
the whole family, right? And then you know yeah, then yeah, and here we are, right?
I
Exactly.
tell people all the time, it is so important to be your authentic self at all times, 100%, and also be open to meeting new people and gaining new friends. And the sad thing about getting older, a lot of folks start to not have the ability to take on new friendships and to create new friendships.
Mhm.
And I think part of living long, and they say the fountain of youth, is to continually be meeting new people and nourishing and nurturing your relationships and your friendships, the old and new. And this has been great. I mean, as we've been talking, chatting it up, and you've been
Yeah,
on. This is your second time on
yeah.
Touch Base Daily, but in our new look,
Yes, yes. New studio.
the new
Yes.
studio, and it's just been absolutely amazing. But I want to give you one last thought. I got one last thing on your final words and thoughts. If you were able to go back to yourself when you first started your photography journey, what wisdom would you impart into yourself if you were able to go back to yourself at the beginning of your photographer's journey?
Gosh, I think it kind of comes out of what you talk about. I think it's about being authentic, to yourself. I think it takes you a long time, when you're in your 20s, man, you're trying to be multiple things. You're trying to First, you're trying to be like you're trying to be like I was definitely trying to be like my mentors,
Mm-hmm.
the people who kind of paved my way and taught me how to make pictures, how to think about pictures. And I think that was the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
I got to myself somewhere in my late 30s, and I feel like um it took a while to get there, some
Mm-hmm.
rough times emotionally and stuff like that. And I think that would be the thing. And not be afraid of the journey, I think, the other little thing that I said earlier on about knowing that things are going to always change.
Yeah.
Be okay with change. I think if that's one thing, because if you think the photographers that I worked for, they all shot film, and they shot film pretty much their whole
Yes.
career. I only shot film half of my career. The
Yeah.
other half now is digital, right?
Yes.
And that was a huge transition. And I and some people think that I came to it early or came to it late. um, I think even now with the fact of social media, atta- how do you attach your brand to social media? It's
Yes.
funny, I'm about to do a talk at a small university in upstate New York called Morrisville. Small little school. It's a SUNY school. It's one of the part of the state universities of New
Mm-hmm.
York, and they bring me up every year for Black History Month because, of course, Colgate, the school that my wife teaches, is literally about 5 miles away from it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I didn't really want to connect myself to Colgate because Colgate is kind of like a rich school. It costs
Yeah. Yes.
80,000 dollars to go. Like, there's only little rich
Legally.
white. Yeah, right. You got to do. There's only little rich white kids that go to Colgate, right? I mean, like to the point there's a private airport in the town that Colgate
Wow.
is for people to fly their children into school, right? So I want to attach myself to a working class school, right? The school that I went to, right? So I have I have shows there. I've done talks there. I've talked. I mean, and say about 40% of the population of that school is of young kids from the New York City area going
Wow.
all the way 4 hours upstate to go to school, and then this is a tiny. I mean, Morrisville, the town, dude. If you couldn't Google it or whatever, you see how tiny this little town is. This town
It
is
has it
tiny.
has Main Street, right?
Yes,
Little Main
that is
Street.
it. That is it. You can even think about like even the wealth gap from
Wow.
Hamilton, the town that Colgate is in, compared to going into Morrisville. It's a huge wealth gap. And, just the town in itself, right? So, and I said to them, like, you have to be part of social media now. And you have to think about making sure that you know how to do video and that you know how to do a podcast. Like that this from now going forward, you need to do all of these things. All of these things.
Yes.
Somebody knew Morrisville there.
Yes,
Uh
that was
so
Amparo, one of our pillars in our community. She's a hip hop photographer. Yeah, she says, Mooresville, blink and you're driving through it.
yes, exactly. That is exactly what it is, right? And I
I
think,
see.
yeah,
Yeah, I was
I
saying here, Felicia says, fascinating life story, Mr. Gaskin. Enjoyed hearing of your travels. People are chiming in and just letting you know. And also, your congratulations on your book. Here's another one for Serena. She's a writer. She says, congratulations on your book. And yeah, so
thank
just
you.
going through these, I'll share some of these posts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just like I said, I think it's important first of all, to give back, but also to be part of
Yes.
that thing, right? Yes, you see, she knows, and that's all of the spaces. I used to live in Syracuse. Just think, right? For about 3 years, when my wife first
Yes.
got the job to Colgate, we lived in Syracuse, and the reason why we
Wow.
lived in Syracuse is because they have a great photography center on the campus of Syracuse University called Lightwork, right? That Carrie Mae Weems is attached to, because Carrie Mae Weems' husband used to run it. He no
Wow.
longer runs it, but he used to run it when I was, you know, 6, 7, actually 10 years ago when we first moved up there. But to say all of those things, that's why you attach yourself to a Morrisville and not Colgate,
Yeah.
because it's you. Like, you're talking to yourself. You're talking to your 20-year-old self, and you're giving
Yes.
them advice about how to make a 30-year career, how you make a 40-year career, how you make a 50-year career. And it's about change. It's about looking at the landscape. It's about looking at what is the world looking like, and what is
That's
the
right.
world going to look like in 10 or 15 years, right? And I mean,
Wow.
we have to talk about AI. I mean, you got all of this stuff is real, you know.
Hmm.
It's moving. It's
It's mo-
moving
the
way faster than
It's
the, you
moving
know.
fast, and now I just learned about AGI, and so now I'm trying to wrap my head. First, I haven't learned AI, and now I gotta learn AGI, and I'm like, I was talking to my cousin about that. Well, we're gonna have to close down because,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
man,
No
you
problem.
and I could talk. I mean,
Yes,
we
we
both
can.
have the gift of gab, and like most people that I pull onto this platform because it's great to talk with other people that love to
Yeah,
talk and share what they're doing. And I can't tell you enough how I appreciate you coming on and sharing with this community your gift, because it is a gift to do
thank
what
you.
you do. Obviously, you've done training, you've learned, you have 30 years of experience. It didn't come easy. You had to work for who you are today. And it shows in your work. Your work is beautiful. Guys, if you have not, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We're going to have every Wednesday, we have our Wisdom Wednesdays, and we celebrate photographers. And you'll be surprised how many once I've gone to this YouTube, how many photographers are excited about coming on, and I'm so excited to see how this evolves. And again,
Yeah,
Mr. Gaskin says that we have to be glad, be open to a pivot. Who knew that I would be on YouTube doing this? But also check out Mr. Gaskin's legendary. Just go to his website again. You can go to Gerard Gaskin photos.com. You can just go straight through Instagram. If you click on Instagram, it'll be right there. It'll also be in the link here at the end of this video in the description. So you'll have it right there. And Paro says yes, and Chatty Kenny, because we are the chatties over here. And
yes.
but yeah, so guys, again, thank you for joining us. I am so happy that Mr. Gaskin, our Gerard, had its opportunity and share to take the moment out of his life to share with us and give us some wisdom on this beautiful Wisdom Wednesday. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we are out. So again, tomorrow is our Thankful Thursday, and you will see us here again at 11:15. Make sure the news gets out on Instagram, because we are not going to be on Instagram for a bit until Instagram works on the link between this platform. And but we'll be here, and maybe that works in our benefit, because now we're building our audience on YouTube, and I'm so excited about that as well. So guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we are out of here.